Hi, my name is Tanjung, and I will be giving you a short novel review on the story Tanjung. I read the story initially thinking it would be more of a simpler plotline, but in the end, when I reached the final page, it had much more depth than I expected. For this review, I will be starting with a simple overview of what the story is about. I'll give you some of the hidden points that were hinted in the story, before moving on to my final conclusions. Tanjung talks about the conflicts of tradition and modern-day youth, along with the perceptual differences between the intergenerational age gap. It also talks about the importance of culture in our modern-day lifestyle. Our persona, Mr. Lee, does not take a liking to the odd behaviors of his mother, or we call his mother Ahma. Ahma does not want to get surgery to get her eyes fixed, while she also talks to a picture of her dead husband. There are many metaphors and instances spread out throughout the story. In the initial part of the story, Amma hinted to the fact that she saw behind her eyes. This is a reference to the fact that she saw things from her memory. She did not need the operation nor the CFA glasses in order to see the horizon, because simply she conjured up her memories from her mind. In a later part of the story, where Amma faces her daughter at the altar, it is shown that Amma is stubborn towards her traditional practices. She does not trust her daughter to carry out the practices correctly, which is a sentiment that Mr. Lee shares. The electric candles on the altar are a symbolic sign of the transition between traditional practices and practicality. When we reach the scene where Amma is at Mr. Lee's office, we are shown that Amma relies heavily on her memories to see the present, all the while she tries to ignore the present. Mr. Lee, however, only sees whatever is happening in front of him, and by the end of the story, when he realizes the importance of seeing back into his memories, her mother has already passed, meaning she could no longer ask her about his past. In the final scene of the story, Mr. Lee tells his dead mother that he has finally saw Tanjung. He has said that the altar is the finest line between life and death, and for him, referencing to the fact that he has finally seen Tanjung is a reference to that he has finally remembered the memories he has had there. I will now go on to some of my final thoughts about the story of Tanjung. Personally, I find it quite interesting for the perspective it takes on the conflicts of tradition and modern youth, though some of the instances of those conflicts may not be the best fleshed out. It talks about a man in his late 60s finally realizing the importance of tradition that was practiced by his parents, and it does so in quite a subtle way. If you were to study it, it is actually quite an interesting read for however short it is. It's a story that I wouldn't say I would go out just to read, but if I were to stumble upon it accidentally, this will be an interesting read. It's short enough and easy enough to digest, and there are enough points for you to study if you wanted to. Overall, it's a nice mix of being simple enough to understand, but also having enough points for a more astute reader to dig out and to present. This will conclude my review of the story Tanjung. As I said, this is a good story that I wouldn't go out for, but if I were to stumble upon it, I would highly recommend giving it a read. Thank you so much.